All right, ladies and gentlemen, can we hear me? Right, a few nods and things like that. Normally people say yes, but I'm happy to stop hearing you. So, let me get my glasses on and get ready to do this. So folks, welcome to BCB Day 2. And despite the slightly crappy weather outside, we're only just getting warmed up. We've got an amazing education program over the 3 days on this stage, the Liquid stage over in the Palais, and also online, on demand via BCB Live on the website. As always, we hope to provide education that's practical, relevant, and interesting, but we know that we've assembled an amazing group of educators and experts for you. Some basic housekeeping. You've all got headsets on, so that's all good. Make sure you give them back at the end. Secondly, we will hopefully be asking questions at the end. I'll be circulating with a microphone then. If you could put your masks back on when we use the microphone, just to protect me more than anything else. And thirdly, I'm not going to give long bios and introductions about the talk, because either they don't need any introductions, or you can read about them on the website, and you should really know what the hell the talk is that you're sitting here for anyway. Finally, take your trash with you when you go. So, in a rather timely event, last week Copenhagen took the top 2 places in the world's top 50 restaurants. Ask any spirits experts who's doing some of the most creative spirits currently, and empirical spirits is certain to be mentioned, though Denmark's whiskies and gins show it's not all Koji madness. And I can speak from experience to say that bars like Ruby and Curfew and Lidkreb and K-Bar and Brass Monkey and others have stood toe-to-toe with the best of them globally. But how did this small, 600,000 people, but lovely city become such a powerhouse in the gastronomic world, and what does the future hold for it? Now, I've asked one of its longtime stars of the cocktail scene to deconstruct, discuss, explain, and predict the importance of this scene. Fresh off 4th place in Diageo World Class, after the 2nd time you've done it, 7 years apart, etc. And the creator of a cocktail that I have to say I put on just about every single menu I have ever consulted with, the number 4. This is my dear friend Hardeep Rehal, and he's going to talk to us about Copenhagen, Denmark, and the creative bar scene. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you. What an absolute pleasure to be here. I've been coming to BCB for 12, 13 years, and I've seen it grow since the very beginning. Coming here with eager eyes, learning with enthusiasm, and for the first time, I'm actually on this side of the stage. And I'm very excited about that. And I'm not talking about cocktails, I'm actually representing my city, Copenhagen. So I've been giving the overall topic, which was the cities that punch above their weights gastronomically. So, which kind of means that we exceed expectations, and Copenhagen is one of those cities. We've kind of been overlooked for a while. We haven't been on this magical golden triangle of metropolitan cities where you travel, so we haven't been up to speed. But within the last 10 years, 15 years, we've become one of the leading cities within gastronomic innovation with food and cocktails. So, what makes us so creative and why? I'm going to try to dissect that. And how did Denmark become a gastronomic hub within the last 10 years? And also, how did the new Nordic Manifesto and the design culture help us get there? A little bit about me, quickly, because this is about Denmark. 17 years I've been behind the bar. And I started bartending next to my studies while I was trying to become an engineer. Then when I finished that, one thing led to another. 17 years later, I'm here, still working behind the bar. I have a bar called Bloom, with a hidden nightclub in the back. And also, I have a company called Cocktail Solutions, which is basically R&D and development within spirits, cocktails, and also do bar consultancies. So, Denmark, tiny country, tiny city of Copenhagen, 5.8 million people, 600,000 people living in the center of Copenhagen. Somehow, we managed to get 27 Michelin restaurants, and those of them got 38 Michelin stars. And within the last 10 years, we've gone from almost no distilleries to 125 distilleries all over Denmark. And then just confined to Copenhagen, we have more than 50 cocktail bars. And that's everything from high-volume cocktail bars to high-end hotel bars and everything in between. I think those are quite good stats for a tiny city and a tiny country of Copenhagen. So I've made a little Where's Waldo of what Denmark is known for. So what we can see here is we have a designer chair by Einar Jacobsen, and we have some designer lamps, pH lamps, some Royal Copenhagen cup. We have a Christiania bike, Lego. We have a Viking ship, the Little Mermaids, and in the middle we have bacon. We are, of course, also known for other things, and recently what we're known for is our food and gastronomic success, and also within the cocktail scene. So I'll be focusing on that. Just some quick stats. In 2010, Denmark had 13 Michelin stars, Michelin restaurants, and now we have 27, which is an amazing, amazing curve. And also, the latest stat is that in 2017, 1/3 of all tourists were gastro-tourists, which is quite amazing, because that also trickled into the bar world, because the restaurant is our biggest asset. So whatever happens there, the success that they have, the same success we have in the bar. Recent news, Angus mentioned it right before, we just have to mention it. Denmark has now #1 and #2 restaurants in the world on top 50 best, which is an amazing accomplishment for a tiny country of Denmark, and they're both based in Copenhagen. So how did we get here? What happened? What have we been through in our timeline to have this amazing gastronomic success? What strings of events have occurred, and what has shaped and helped the mindset of Danish people to have this Danish style, this approach to food, the approach to cocktails, and this approach to design? What has helped us along the way? I'm trying to find a common denominator between everything, and the red thread between a designer chair, food, and then cocktails. So how do we get from this lovely palette of food, with all due respect, to this? Clean lines, elegance, form and function, and beautiful color coordination. Or to this, where you have color blocking colors, simplicity, and then using textures from the same color, and this beautiful minimalistic view. Also, how do we get from this, which was what Copenhagen looked like, with all due respect, to this? Simple, clean lines, elegant presentation, or this beauty right here, which is where the form and function is the aesthetic of the cocktail. Also this, clean, crisp expression, minimalistic view, simple and aesthetic. I want to mention a fun quote that I came across that kind of made me think. Every book written is a remix of the dictionary, which is kind of a fun thing to think about, because nothing comes from nowhere. Nothing happens in vacuum. All our inspirational ideas come from somewhere. We modulate inputs, and then that becomes a creative output, which means we cannot help to get inspired from somewhere. Also, creativity is knowledge personalized, which kind of emphasizes that same idea. Creativity doesn't come from nowhere. Which is why I'm taking it back to Danish design. The look and feel of Danish drinks and food came from somewhere. That's why that's why I'm going to talk about Danish design and then how it started. Because we can trace back to the look and feel of the Danish scene, and then you can kind of figure out that the look and feel of Danish design transcends through everything. That's how we make our cutlery, that's how we place our food, and that's also how we make our drinks. Here we have world's first design hotel, designed by Arne Jacobsen in 1956. This is the SAS Royal, and on the picture is a hotel room. Everything in here is designed by Arne Jacobsen. You can kind of see, let's put some words on it. We have function and form, so everything that is beautiful and ecstatic in here has a function. There's a chair, there's a sofa, there's a table, but all of them are actually pieces of art. It's minimalistic. There are clean lines, crisp lines, and also simplicity in the aesthetics. The simplicity becomes the aesthetics. So that's basically to put a couple of words on what Danish design is. But as I said, nothing comes from nowhere. This right here also has an inspiration. We can trace it back to the Bauhaus movement, which happened right here in Germany, which is basically a revolutionizing movement started in 1919. Germany was blazing through industrialization, so they had to figure out a way to mass-produce products. And what they did was to take away all access and distill it down to the bare function of everything, and also using modern materials like pipes, metals, and hard plastic, which basically became the very definition of the Bauhaus movement. Here are some examples of what came from the Bauhaus movement. You see the clean lines, you see the simplicity, you see the metal, you see the hard plastic, but what the Bauhaus movement basically wanted to do is to create a functional design that you cannot separate the art from the artists. So they were taking the craftsman, combining it with the art, and that's where you get this wonderful design. Because you can have something that's very beautiful and not functional, which is just art, and then you can have something that's very functional but not beautiful, which is your regular household item. The Bauhaus movement found the middle ground in between, cutting off all excess and distilling it to the bare minimum, so the form and function becomes the aesthetic. So how did it arrive to Denmark? Carl Klint is the grandfather of Danish design. He's also the educator of the Danish Design and Architectural School, and what he did, he took inspiration from the Bauhaus movement and brought it back to Denmark. So he wanted to recreate it with his own kind of twist on it, but because Denmark was later industrialized, we didn't have the same access to mass production. We didn't have the same access to hard metals, hard plastic, and pipes, and we didn't have machinery. So what Carl Klint did, he hired cabinet makers to replicate these Bauhaus designs. So these cabinet makers, they used, of course, they didn't have metal, so they used organic materials like mix of woods, organic leather, and varnish, which kind of changed the look and feel of the Bauhaus movement and kind of gave us our own style and look and feel. So what actually happened after there is that these designer furnitures, because the quality was higher with this organic wood and leather, the price went slightly more up. And then that didn't become a household item that they wished it to be. But that's where the government came in and then made it accessible for the people. A fun little quote I have here is, "Denmark is the home of all things tasteful, elegant, and quiet." I think that's a wonderful way of explaining what everything we do, not just furniture, but also food and cocktails, that you have is tasteful, elegant, but you have this quietness about it. It's because of this Danish humbleness, a democratic view of everything we do is this quietness, but we find the elegance in that. Also, we have the ability of transforming the old Danish styles and values into modern society, adding freshness. Something that we really value is the old and the new mashed together. Like Carl Klint, he took the new modern design from Bauhaus, but took the old handcrafted values from the cabinet makers using wood and design, matching the two worlds together, and creating this Danish design look and feel. I have a slide here called "For the People," because how did we become a design nation? Normally you would associate design furniture or anything designer something being elitist, but Denmark being a very democratic country, and everything is for the people, by the people, a humbleness. The government, they kind of stepped in and helped out. They took these designer furnitures and placed them in public places like hospitals, churches, libraries, bringing it to the people. That's kind of how everybody had access to these wonderful designs, and we became a design nation. Here is a picture of a church, you see, and the very popular chair from Børge Mogensen calls the People's Chair. And in the church, you actually see all of these wonderful designer chairs placed up for the people, for everyday use, which is the very essence of Danish design. It's form and function. It has to be functional. It cannot just be aesthetic. Another quick example is the Vola tap. So this is Arne Jacobsen. He got the gig of designing the Danish National Bank. And here you see just a simple thing as a water tap you see everywhere today. But this was groundbreaking back in the days. What Arne Jacobsen did, he took everything that was excess and hid it away behind the wall, underneath the cabinet, revealing the bare function of whatever you're seeing. So the form, the form here becomes the aesthetic. And it's for the people. So since the tap is just one in the middle, it's accessible for people with disabilities. If you're left or right hand, it doesn't matter. It's access to everybody. Also, you see the National Bank here, where you see the staircase on the outside, Everything that has a function other than that is on the inside. So all the hallways, the doors, everything else is hidden away, and all of a sudden, the form and function of the staircase becomes aesthetic, distilling it down to the very definition of the functionality. And of course, this mindset, look and feel, transcended into everything we do. It moved into electronics. So what we have here is Bang & Olufsen. They've been making electronics, wonderful electronics, for 100 years. On this slide, you actually see evolution of B&O of 100 years. But what everything has in common is this form and function, clean lines, elegance, and simple aesthetics. From electronics, they also have, just like the Volatap, they made it simple. They added the buttons on the actual phone, and where the actual shape became the aesthetic, which was groundbreaking back at the time, bringing simplicity into form and function. Of course, this view of Danish design also moved slowly into our world, the food and drinks world. So here you have George Jensen with a water decanter, where the shape itself is the form and function, which is absolutely beautiful. The same with the cutlery here of Arne Jacobsen from 1957. The form and shape becomes the aesthetic, and it's all about functionality. Moving even closer to our world, glassware. Here you have Holmenkoldt producing glassware since the 1800s, a decanter and a wine glass, where the aesthetics is in the shape. So basically what that meant is this view, this philosophy of Danish design moved closer and closer to our industry. So that also kind of gave us a responsibility. If the plate is simple design, aesthetic, and beautiful, what we put on the plate has to represent the same things. If the glass has a simplicity and an elegant design and crisp, clean lines, whatever we put in the glass has to represent the same thing. So this design movement kind of primed our mindsets of what we put on the plate and in the glass, giving it the Danish look and feel. So another thing that kind of helped us traject into a gastronomic capital was that the new Nordic movements, we don't have a food heritage. We don't have a luscious food heritage, just like our southern neighbors like Spain, Italy, and France. And that can actually have a plus to where we can reinvent ourselves. It's not hindering us, it's not shackling us, which is kind of moving me forward to the next slide, which I call shackles of tradition. So tradition and a long gastronomic culture is wonderful. You govern your gastronomic culture, you follow these traditions, but they can also kind of shackle you in innovation because you govern them so much. This happens in the food scene, and it also happens in the cocktail scene. You try to mess with classic cocktail recipes, but the culture and heritage kind of govern them, preventing innovation. On the left here, on the right here, you see a pizza with pineapple. Not that I'm condoning pineapple on pizza, but it's a fun example, because if you approach an Italian and you say, change the recipe in your tomato sauce, or put an extra ingredient in your pasta, you're gonna get cursed, your grandmothers come after you, and you're gonna get killed. And that's it's great because you govern tradition, but also it's preventing you from innovation. Technically, pineapple on pizza is innovation, but I'm not saying it's delicious, but the shackles of tradition prevents us from it. A good example for me is that you see a plate here, and it's made by Massimo Bottura from Osteria Francescana. Previously had the first best restaurant in the world and World's 50 Best. The amount of battles he had to do with the local community of innovating Italian cuisine is absolutely insane. Because here you have a dish called 6 tortellinis on a plate. Imagine telling an old Italian grandma you're serving 6 tortellini on the plate and you're charging 4 times the price. He was cursed away. But the battles he had to take was absolutely astounding. Which brings me back to our situation. Denmark doesn't have a rich and luscious food tradition. We've been very humble about it. It's been very functional to get us through oppressing winters, beers and pints. So reinventing ourselves actually becomes easier because we don't have tradition governing us and preventing us from innovation. A big catalyst that happens in this movement is the new Nordic Manifesto. I'm not going to read it all to you, but in 2004, Klaus Meyer and René Redzepi took initiative to make the new Nordic Manifesto that reinvents the food scene in Denmark. And then they wrote a manifesto being co-signed by 12 other chefs from around the Nordics, such as Greenland, Faroe Islands, and Iceland, and then writing down a set of rules and regulations or guidelines to define the new Nordic cuisine. And roughly, it is sourcing local, respecting nature, sustainability, using the seasons, animal welfare, and all of those things kind of to govern your local community, which is what kind of made a huge trajectory to where we are today. Because this is not only in the food world, this also transcends into the bar world. Not that we're super dogmatic about it, but it kind of sets a mindset of sets of rules and regulations of a direction that we're all walking together. How to become a food nation? It didn't happen by itself. Just like the government supporting the designer chairs in the beginning, making it accessible for the people, this new Nordic food movement was also supposed to be accessible for the people, which the government actually had a massive support into, creating food events, food festivals, food pop-ups, and all sorts of different things. And at the moment, we have over 35 food festivals yearly occurring in Denmark within the last 10 years, and it's a mix of private funding and government funding, making it accessible for the people. This very democratic view that everybody is involved. But also it became a strategic path to promote Denmark as this new Nordic cuisine, bringing in tourists. Which brings me to my topic of the day, which is death of exoticism. It sounds a bit dramatic, but I needed to catch your attention. So basically, what this means is the new Nordic Manifesto, combined with a Danish design and all of this supporting local, changed the view of what exotic actually means. We have this infatuation from things that come from abroad, things that are hard to get a hand of and has limited availability, and that kind of changed the view. But also the word exotic is very Eurocentric and very Northern Hemisphere, because if you look up the word exotic, you're going to get tropical fruits like passion fruit, mango, coconut, and pineapple, which is very Eurocentric, because tropical, sure, but what is exotic to us is not exotic to another person. A passion fruit is not exotic for a person in Brazil, a mango is not exotic for a person in India. So exotic is just basically a description of something that is limited availability and that's basically you can't get all the time, which kind of changes the definition. So this new Nordic Manifesto changes the conventional definition of exoticism, basically killing the traditional view of exoticism, which brings me to my title, Death of Exoticism. So this path that we're taking here transcends from the food world also into the drink world. So we're sourcing more locally. We don't have this fetish of bringing in exotic fruits from all over the place or tropical fruits from all over the place. We find the exoticness in our own backyard. I've tried to make like a Danish cocktail diagram here, which is kind of crude. Don't be super dogmatic about it. But here you have a circle of Danish design, old and new craft techniques, because that's basically what the design movement and New Nordic Manifesto also talked about, respecting the old craft, combining it with modern techniques. And here you have the New Nordic Manifesto with sourcing locally and respecting ingredients and high quality products. If you combine the first two in room number one, Danish design and the new and old techniques, you're missing the locally sourced ingredients, you're missing the attention to detail, you're missing the high quality elegance. If you combine Danish design and New Nordic Manifesto, you're missing the old craft with modern techniques, which is also transcends from the food world to the drinks world. And here, if you combine old craft and new techniques with New Nordic Manifesto, you're missing the look and feel and the elegance of Danish design, which transcends into the food and to the cocktails. But if you combine all three, you have what the Danish cocktail scene looks like today, broadly speaking. So you can't have great cocktails without great ingredients, which brings me to a list of examples that I'm going to go through of absolutely cool things that are happening in Copenhagen. They will be very spirit heavy, but my first example will be about food, because food is our biggest asset. Cotton, a great guy. So basically, he has taken reinventing oneself to the next level. Copenhagen is a cycling city, and I love cycling, and he's taking gourmet food out into the city with a modified bike. Look at this beauty. This is a bullet bike, also known as Larry versus Harry, modified into a satellite kitchen with a full functioning stove and stuff like that. I'm just thinking this would be a fantastic bar. Ice in the middle, you know, some samples here, pull-out fridges in the bottom. What a fantastic bike to have. But I have a short video where Morten actually gets to present his own product and projects. So I'll play that now.
For me, there's a whole setting around the cooking. And to be, as a chef as well, a part of this social activity that comes with the dining is a place where my personality fits very well. To create experiences for people and together with people, among people, that I find very challenging, but as well very thrilling and enjoyable. My name is Morten. I am a bicycle chef, and right now we are in Copenhagen, which is my neighborhood. Every citizen in Copenhagen has their own bike, and we all have a relationship to our bicycle. It can be personalized. In 2002, when I designed the first bike, it took some months to design on paper. And my good friend, who is a carpenter, he helped me build a box and integrate it on the bicycle, where there was like a stove and there was a sink. It was very neat and polished, but it was very heavy. I could only go a few kilometers, and I was all tired when I arrived, so it had its limitations. Now I've designed newer models and more light and more effective, good to pack, weather resistant. I'm very satisfied with my mobile chef tools now. People, they didn't really understand what was the purpose. But my idea was not the street food thing. My idea was to bring experiences to like 10 to 12 people and to cook for this party at special locations around Copenhagen. It is super risky to perform as a chef outside the normal traditional kitchen. You have limitations of weight, of the balance, storage. It's super vulnerable. I mean, I can drop it and the tour is wrecked. I need to be able to improvise on the way. I tried to bring a restaurant experience, but on two wheels. So we start out with a welcome drink, a small snack, and maybe a small introduction to what people can expect. And then we bike.
Pretty cool. Moving swiftly forward, wine in Denmark. So we are not known to be a big wine country. We're not super grape friendly, but we have had some wine farms around town, around the country. But it's only in 2000 that EU approved us being able to export and commercially produce wine, which has kind of given birth to almost 100 wineries around Denmark today, where Dyrhøj is one of the biggest ones. Also, what it gave birth to was this a side track of fruit wines, just like Frederiksdal, which they use sour cherries to create wonderful, delicious, and elegant wines. Well, what I want to focus on here is a smaller producer called Copenhagen Winery. He started as a hobby project by using apples, because we have lots of apples in Denmark, to produce ciders. And he's kind of reinventing himself by using botanicals in his ciders, but also sourced locally and absolutely organic. And here you have two expressions. One is lemon chamomile, another one is with hops and herbs. So this is basically taking an old category and reinventing it. Also, because then he moved away from Copenhagen due to he was getting more and more volume, just 30 to 40 minutes up north, where he actually has his own plantation. And from that plantation, he's making delicious fruit wines from sloe, black currants, plums, lots of flowers and herbs. And you see all the selection here. And in 2019, he won the Fruit Wine of the Year. Still a very small producer, but everything is organic, everything's produced naturally, it's all hands-on, which fits with the look and feel of the Danish mindsets. And also, due to him being organic, he's using a lot of the leftover, the rancio, to redistill and make applejack and other liqueurs. Talking about distillation, next up is Copenhagen Distillery. Founded in 2014, and they wanted to make elegant, beautiful, and simple spirits. They were organically certified in 2019, fitting perfectly into the Danish mindset and the trajectory of where we're going. The whole idea was to be a melting pot of creativity. So the staff is from all different backgrounds, and the head of R&D is a dear friend of mine called Sune Urt, who's an absolute legend and has been in the bar industry for as long as I have, if not longer than me, but now taking care of the creative process in Copenhagen Distillery. It's a beautiful venue, and it's a melting pot, also doing events, pop-ups, and other things to bring it to the people, a melting pot for everybody. Here you have a line of their products, and I'm of course focusing on Aquavit, which is kind of our national spirits. So they have broken the molds from traditional Aquavit and brought it to the new world. We've been distilling Aquavit since the 1700s, and the biggest company at the moment has been Aalborg Aquavit. And then Copenhagen Distillery comes along, kind of breaking the mold and bringing it to the modern day, but still governing the classic tradition. What they do is to distill it down to its very essence, still using traditional techniques and also governing the category by using caraway or dill as the main flavor profile, but then using only one or two botanicals to give it this clean, crisp expression. You can just have a look of the bottles. It's clean, crisp line, the form and function is the aesthetics, which fits perfectly in the mindset of the design story we've been through today. So they have one expression with long pepper, which is just that one botanical on top of the classic caraway. They have a black taffel, where they have used distillation of beets from the Danish black soil, why it's called black taffel. Then they have a classic dill, Aquavit, but they gave it a bit more zing with a hint of anise. Again, just two expressions, keeping it crisp and clean. And then the last one you see is called Mulberry Rose, where they wanted to recreate childhood memories running around in the Danish meadows and parks, also based on the dill Aquavit. Copenhagen Distillery also make a line of gins with the same kind of look and feel and approach. And recently they've also launched a line of single malts, which are absolutely delicious. But check them out, Copenhagen Distillery, and see their product portfolio. Speaking of distillation, brings me forward to Stauning Whiskey, the New World Whiskey. In 2005, 9 friends from very different backgrounds had a hobby project, and for the love of whiskey, they wanted to recreate a smoky Islay whiskey just back in Denmark. So they piled in money together, they bought 2 copper pot stills and they abandoned butchery on the west coast of Denmark, and they're starting distilling using the local heritage of the city, the clean water, the hazard to smoke the whiskey, creating a beautiful product. And the first edition was released in 2011, and they took the world with storm, earning a place on the shelves of bars and restaurants, also getting endorsements from places like Noma. Diageo saw the quality and potential of Stauning, so they made an investment to expand their portfolio, and also so they could produce higher volume. And here is a picture of the distillery. The look and feel is super Nordic. You have crisp and clean lines, form and function, but inside you have the old craft making old whiskey. If you didn't know it was a distillery, you would think they'll be selling designer furniture. But inside is the old craft of making Scotch-style whiskies. Just the look and feel of what they do is reinventing the whiskey into a new world style. So besides their original profile, which is called smoke, they made something called rye. American inspiration, Scotch method, Danish flavor on top. So everything is malted, and the rye whiskey here is floor malted, and that gives the expression a more fruity, elegant, and more crisp taste profile. And if you quote them, they say this whiskey is for whiskey haters. So it's like the gateway of bringing people into the whiskey. Reinventing themselves once again. If you see the look and feel of their product called the Classico here, they've taken the rye whiskey, trying to recreate the Manhattan, because this is one of their favorite drinks, giving it a finish in old vermouth casks, kind of pushing innovation within the whiskey world. They're constantly releasing new products, so check out Standing Whiskey when you get the chance. Speaking of locally sourced, Gin Heroes is a gin producer, a very new one that I wanted to quickly mention, founded by Søren Krarup in 2017, an old engineer. So what he basically wanted to do is take locally sourced to the next level. All of these expressions of gin describe either a park, a place, or an area distributed in Copenhagen, not distributed in Denmark, and all of these botanicals that goes in each expression of gin are hand-picked and foraged in those areas, and you see the names on the bottles. I think it's a very, very cool project, and basically taking this locality, locally sourced, where the new Nordic Manifesto paved the way, to the next level. If you look at the bottle also, they have the look and feel of Danish design, this elegant, clean lines, crisp and simplicity in their form and function. Moving forward to revolutionizing conventional spirits, you have empirical. I guess most of you know empirical spirits. Basically, they have taken and shattered the spirit category. What they have done here is formed by Lars and Mark, and they kind of had the idea. They both love flavor, and they wanted to come together and change the conventional view on spirits, breaking the mold of the traditional categories, not putting it in either vodka or gin or flavored or whatever. They just make flavor. They wanted to do everything in-house, so they do everything from malting the barley, or taking the barley, instead of malting it, they inoculate it with koji mold to accelerate the enzymic process, and then they make that into a beer where they add Pilsner malt and Belgian yeast to make a beer. Then it's vacuum distilled, and it's micro-cut in more than 50 cuts. They splice it back together to get the desired flavor profile, and then instead of diluting with water, they add kombucha, which makes a very complex but yet very hearty and umami-rich spirits. And they use the spirit to make various different flavor profiles. Again, keeping it crisp and clean. One is, for example, with habanero. Another one is with plum kernels. But they're keeping it crisp and clean, revolutionizing the spirit category. The latest thing in the portfolio is canned cocktails, as you see here in the middle, where they use beet distillate as the base, and then they add various different extractions and juices to make a wonderful canned cocktail. Most of you know Empirical, but they're constantly evolving. Check them out if you want to know more about their products. But just moving back to the bottles, you can see here the very essence of Danish design. Crisp, clean lines, form and function, and then simplicity. Speaking of canned cocktails, we move to the latest addition to the Danish cocktail scene is Quench and Tickle, made by these two handsome gentlemen, Kasper Rive and Rasmus Polsko, two dear friends of mine, also absolute legends in the bar, shaking cocktails for more than 17, 18 years, longer than me, slowly moving into being producers. Kasper still has the cocktail bar called Duck and Cover based in Vesterbro, which is a fantastic bar, but together they have founded what is now called Quench and Tickle. They've been working on this project for a couple of years, finding out the right flavor profile, strains of yeast, and they've been very productive during the COVID lockdown because they finalized the products and then launched March this year with an instant success, hitting the stores and then taking people with storm. So unlike many other canned and bottled cocktails where you have a distillate providing the alcohol, Quench and Tickle, they focus on fermentation. So what they do, they have fruit wines as their base of these cocktails, and they have specific strains of yeast combined with the specific fruits to have the desired profile, creating these low wines as a base. Then they add extracts from bitter herbs and other botanicals to give it a specific flavor profile, and then force carbonating it at the end, giving it a very unique taste and feel, and having this rich, rich texture and long-lasting taste. So basically what they have here, they have 3 flavors. One is called Camping Safari, which is a pineapple ferment added with lemongrass, lavender, and gentian. The other one is called Rooftop Hiking, which is a rosehip shell ferment with galangal and allspice. And they are also now dipping into the no-low category with an alcohol-free cocktail, staying true to the fermentation of their core values, where this one is based on apple cider vinegar with pear juice and ginger. Check out Quench and Tickle. I hear rumors about another flavor is being launched soon. Speaking of the no-low category, the latest addition here is a Ver. Founded by Christian Tang, who's actually here with us today, the idea was flavor first. Everything doesn't really matter, flavor first. And from what I know, the idea from the very beginning was to replace the drinking experience of a wine just in a non-alcohol way. And that's how a Ver kind of came to life. I'm going to focus on the 3 core products, which are the alcohol-free botanical products. They all have 3 different flavor profiles. One is called Soir, Après, and Nuit. And what Christian does, by making it alcohol-free, he's kind of reinvented his own extraction technique by mixing different styles of vacuum, temperature control, agitation, to get the perfect extract of these botanicals. And as I said before, it's flavor first, so it doesn't really matter if it's just 2 botanicals creating the whole drink, or it is 15, 20 botanicals creating the whole drink. It's all about the flavor and how they interact together. Currently, he's importing more than 60 botanicals to create a selection of these alcohol-free botanical serves. Of course, thinking sustainability, he also uses these ingredients to make some alcohol-based cocktails and stuff like Amaros. So check out Aver. Christian is also actually the owner of the previous Curse & Co. We're very excited and waiting eagerly for it to open again. And recently Pavilion, which is a bar located in Torhallene in the center of Copenhagen. But check out Aver and see what the product portfolio is giving us. Lastly, before I round off, talking about all these amazing ingredients that we have in Copenhagen, what actually also has helped us become so creative and giving us the tools that we need to become one of the top players in the scene are our importers. So unlike our neighbor countries like Norway and Sweden, which has restrictions on alcohol rules, they have a monopolized government-controlled alcohol importation, we in Denmark are a bit more liberal. So what that basically allows us to is independent importers. And these independent importers, they bring delicious stuff to us. And the proximity of the small city of Copenhagen in Denmark gives a very one-to-one relationship with these importers. Then we have a very good relationship. So basically, we can go to them and go like, hey guys, we saw this amazing stuff at BCB. Can you import it for us? And vice versa. They come to us and go like, so guys, in the bar scene, what do you guys need? Can we bring on some cool stuff? Do you have any good ideas? And this relationship actually blossomed and giving us a very privileged relationship to amazing spirits that we've had accessible since the very beginning. So, rounding off the talk, I've been given the topic of trying to explain how and why the Copenhagen bar scene ended up where we were, of trying to make a connection from the Danish design movement to the new Nordic Manifesto and how it shaped and formed our look and feel of everything we do, and how it trickled down to the bar industry, kind of defining the Danish food and drink scene. I hope it kind of described it very well. And lastly, I want to thank BCB for inviting me here. I want to thank Angus for giving me the opportunity to talk about Copenhagen. And then I want to thank all of you for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed the talk. Thank you.
Cool, if you'd like to put your headphones on. So folks, anybody have any questions for Hardeep? I'll start, because that always helps. You can hear me? You can hear me? Turned it on, channel 1.
Yes.
Cool, okay, fantastic. I mean, first off, I love Copenhagen. I lived there for 6 months. It's a lovely place, lovelier in the summer than in the winter.
Uh-huh.
But in terms of bartending is such a global career. People travel constantly, and some of the best Italian bartenders in the world have been in London, and they've been in London for some time.
Right.
Do Danish bartenders travel and bring back any influences and things like that?
It is not as common as well, because first of all, we're a small country and we have this sense of belonging somewhere. It's not that common. We do have people leaving and coming back again, but for now, because we have this new Nordic manifestation of what's happening in Copenhagen, it is a hot topic. Whatever comes from the Nordics is received very, very well. So staying in Copenhagen at the moment is actually where the greatest inspiration comes from. And also, unlike 15, 20 years ago, what I would travel to London, see what will happen. I would travel to New York, I would travel to different countries. Now people actually start to come to Copenhagen, which is very weird to me, but an absolute privilege, because that means we've done something quite exceptional.
Also, I mean, part of the appeal of Denmark is the quality of life, from the Scandinavian social welfare network, etc. I mean, is bartending a respected career there? Culinary a respected career? I mean, it means at least you can have a wife and children and not be in poverty as it is in many other places, but is it a respected career?
So there are two aspects of that. Like I mentioned in my talk, we don't have this rich culture of food and cocktail heritage like many other countries have, so it's not known as a profession. We had to start all over again. I belong to the first generation of the newer age of cocktails, so we had to pave the way. So it's not recognized as a profession, but the Danish welfare system and just having a functional job in Denmark gives you a minimum wage, which is quite high, gives you pension and all of these things. So you can make a living. If you have a full-time job in the bar industry, you can make it just as good as living as doing anything else, which is uneducated. So where you don't have an actual education and you don't go on higher posts. So it is a very respectable living, but it's not recognized yet as a career path.
Okay, and you talked about being the start of the next generation or the newer generation, etc.
Right.
I mean, were there people who were, professional bartenders, inspirations, godmothers, godfathers of the scene, etc.?
We had very few. So the latest we can trace where it was considered a professional career is back in the 50s and 60s. In the well-known hotel bars, where the gastronomy and the design had the golden age, where just luxurious and yuppies kind of came in. Then it kind of faded away, but it started to reappear in the late 90s and early 2000s. So there is a generation right before me, but there are very few of them, working in the recognized hotel bars, such as the Sas Royal, one or two people. So we've been leaning a bit up against them, but also whatever literature we could find, and also going to other countries, because the heritage there is just way longer. Italy having, a lineage of bartenders, American bars, and then hotel bars in London, which actually passes down for generations. So we're kind of leaning up against them, also with the first generation of bartenders in Denmark.
Fantastic. Folks, any questions from the floor for Hardeep?
Mask on. Hello,
Hello.
I'm Favoris from Greece. I'm a big fan of Hardeep, and the second time after 7 years that you took a place to world class was really inspiring.
Oh, thank you very much.
And my question is, are manifestos to be broken? And my thoughts was like Noma and Geranium.
Yeah.
Also in movies movement, Lars von Trier and
Exactly.
Thomas Vinterberg, they did a manifesto, Dogma 95.
Exactly.
And they were, as far as I know, the first guys that they broke their dogma.
Right.
My question is, do we have to feel guilty when we want to use exotic ingredients in our cocktails? If those, we are sure that they're gonna make our guests
Sure.
satisfied and happy.
Right, good question. So, thank you very much. Basically, it comes down to every new trend that kind of happens. So, if we have to break the mold and make something new, it needs kind of an extreme reaction. It needs to be manifested, we need to prove ourselves, it's kind of an overcorrection. And within time, this overcorrection becomes an example, and then it gets a place in the world of whatever we want it to, and then it'll slowly move back to the middle. So these manifestos that occur also in the Bauhaus movement, New York food scene and the movie scene, were necessary at that point to make a point of this new style of making things, of this regulation of making things. It was necessary to start up, but eventually when things evolve, things balance themselves out, and then you use this as a stepping stone. So I don't think at all we should be ashamed of using exotic ingredients, but the manifesto, when it came out in 2004, and then when the bartender started using it several years later, it was necessary for us to make this movement happen. And now we import ingredients from all over the world, but the manifesto just helped us make the movement happen, and then give us Hello? Yes? Ah, great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
I remember like 20 years ago going to Copenhagen, and like the three big drinks were Irish coffee,
Right.
gin tonic, and there was some weird passion fruit mojito
Right.
thing. What was that called?
I think it was just a passion fruit mojito.
Right, okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, is that, we've moved on from there, but are bars in Denmark using modernist techniques, rotovap, sous vides,
Yes.
et cetera? I mean, that is an increasing thing, and that's come from the kitchen or come from looking at other bars around the world?
Other bars around the world, of course, in the very beginning, since we were the first generation. But then, all of a sudden, the food movement became our biggest asset. So whatever happened there happened in the bar. And we have this privilege of knowing these people. Like we talk to René Redzepi, we talk to Rasmus Kofoed. We actually have the opportunity of meeting these amazing artists and craftsmen in the food industry. So naturally, our inspiration draws from the food world. As to what the drink scene looks like now, there is always a buffer of the first movement, and then it takes some time for the rest of the country to catch up. So there is something amazing going on, but you don't have to go more than 10, 15 kilometers out of the city, then you still have passion fruit mojito, Irish coffees, and whatnot, which is great. They have their place, but again, like I mentioned with the trends, an overcorrection is necessary to make statements, and then I think the rest will follow up within time.
And I've been lucky enough to eat at Noma twice, and both times someone at my table had not the wine pairing, because that's what I had, but they had the juice pairing. And yeah. I know in other restaurants in Copenhagen, a juice pairing, a creative juice pairing is a thing. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I'm just blown away by it.
Absolutely. What that actually gives the guest or the staff working there, pairing wine is a fine art, but you're confined to what the product is already. Making a juice menu, you tailor-make every single flavor profile to the dish, which for me, even though I'm a big wine lover, I've Burgundy for days, but having a specific designed flavor profile to each dish is a gastronomic experience. And also, within time now, this no-low movement is becoming stronger and stronger. Even with me, like being a professional bartender slash booze drinker for almost 2 decades, I also enjoy not getting drunk, but just enjoying flavor. So this no-low movement has come to stay, and then the restaurant juice pairing menus have actually also helped pave the way that it's actually okay to have something non-alcoholic, to not have wine, to not have strong booze, but just enjoy flavor. which is amazing for us as bartenders, because what we essentially do is flavor. So thank you for the food, for the juice menus.
Thank you. Folks, any last questions? Hi, Hardeep.
Hello.
Thank you for the presentation. Absolutely exquisite.
Thank you.
Really big fan. I have a question, and perhaps not a popular opinion, but I think one of the things you spoke about today that really resonated is your connection between Danish design, then moving on to the Nordic food trends, and how that Danish restaurants have really thrived, gastronomically speaking, both in terms of Michelin stars, in terms of general food performance in all sectors, from cheap food to middle class to high class. We've done exceptionally well. It's a multi-billion euro industry in Copenhagen alone every year. In Denmark alone every year. But what I want to ask is, I feel that we as an industry, relative to the restaurants, perhaps that's not developed as much, that we still maybe are status quo. We remained a place about 5-6 years ago.
Right.
We sort of stopped having, let's say, the intrinsic need to push the boundaries further. So
Right.
what I really would like to know is you, from your perspective, from where you come from and with your background, what do you feel we have to do to catch up? Because I feel very much,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Excellent question. And it's actually something we've been talking about in the industry for a while now. We've been stagnating. One of the things is that new blood hasn't actually been trained and then incorporated in our industry. So I've been working in the bar 15 years. I'm still in the bar. I'm still running a bar. So I'm still calling the shots. I think I'm very creative, but I'm not necessarily as forward-thinking as new blood would be. So that's one of the things. Also, the massiveness of the new Nordic movements that have put us on the global map is also government support. Government supporting food festivals, initiatives, using it as a marketing strategy on posters externally. Come to Denmark, eat our food. They don't do come to Denmark and drink our drinks. So I think we will always have this lack behind the food industry because it's alcohol, and we won't have the same government support putting in millions of using us for marketing, making it accessible for the people, just like furniture and food. So that, I think that will always be a set of ball and chains for the bar industry. That, and then of course new bloods.
Cool.
Small follow-up.
Yes.
I agree 100% with everything you said, but do you feel there's anything that we could do to catch up? Because if you look at it, the foreign ministry, and at least the Foreign Trade Council, and these funds and the funds that are surrounding the food industry does support Danish manufacturing, especially when it comes to food and beverage. What do we have to do to get the bar on that wagon? Because they're already giving hundreds of millions every year to distilleries, to producers.
Right.
So what do we need to get on that wagon? What do we individually, as bar owners, as producers, have to do to catch up?
I think that I kind of picked up on that we are very individualized in the bar world. And in the chef world, it doesn't matter if you're a sushi chef, if you're a new Nordic cuisine chef, if you're a classic French chef, if you're a chef in Denmark, there is a tight bond. They're friends, they hang out together, and they move as a unit. We don't necessarily do that in the bar industry. If you don't stir your cocktail clockwise and use the right amount of bitters, you don't belong in that club. If you don't use these amount of ingredients and have this school of thought, you don't belong to this club. There's not a cross-border friendship, which means our industry in the bar is divided. We have strength in numbers. And for us to make this approach, to have government support, to be as almost like to catch up with the food industry, we need to become one unit. We need to set away our personal differences, the individuality, and then work as an industry across bars.
That's fine. Right. I would say, I mean, just to follow up very briefly on that, one of the things that the pandemic has taught us in all the countries around the world is that bars suck at lobbying governments. Food industry, off-premise, restaurants, significantly better at having sensible discussions with governments, etc. And that's an interesting discussion for another time.
Yeah.
But, Hardeep, thank you so much for
pleasure.
your
Thank you very
inspirational,
much.
thoughtful presentation today.
Thank you.
We will be around, I'm sure, for more questions afterwards.
Yeah, thank you very much.